In the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful. All praise be to Allah, the Lord of the heavens and the earth. And peace and blessings be upon our beloved Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Dear listeners, I salute you all with the salutation of the people of paradise. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
I'm your host, Hatim al-Absalam, and joining me in the studio is
Wa'il al-Harrasi.
Today we have a very, very interesting topic, very educational, and we have a very special guest with us today. Our guest today is Mr. Ahmed bin Mubarak al-Muta'ani, who is the director of the Learning Center of one of the local colleges in Oman. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
How are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. It's an honor to have you again on our show. You've been with us for the past few years, and we trapped you again with us this year today.
The honor is mine, and I hope that people will like the session today.
Inshallah.
So what is it about today?
Today the topic is about mixed gender environment. As we know that mixed gender environment now is a phenomenon that happens all over the world. It's in the colleges, in the schools, in the coffee shops, all around. Now, the question to ask ourselves, can we eliminate this phenomenon, or do we have to live with it? And if we have to live with it, what should we do to be able to cope with it? Now, we're not talking about adults today. We're not talking about working environments. We're talking about kids from the age of 0 to teenagers, to college students. And
of course, the reason we're talking about this today in a parenting show is that there are a lot of consequences that we have been warned by our beloved Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, about having mixed gender environments, about mixing together, and the importance of segregation separation between male and female. We would like to know, in the current situation today, in today's modern world, can we eliminate this? Can we revert back to the way we were? And if we can't immediately, then how can we cope as parents? How do we raise our children to protect ourselves and our children from falling into the traps of mixed gender environments? This is a show that we would like a lot of input from our listeners, and we would like you to call us, please. We are live on 90.4 FM, so you can call us on 24602058, 24602058. You can always follow us on Twitter at Hatim IIC, Hatim HATIM IIC. If you miss the show now live, we always repeat daily at 9 p.m. Hatim.
Yes, Ahmed, how are you today?
I'm doing great, actually, and I hope that everybody, gonna listen to the show and gonna learn something out of it.
Okay. Ahmed, to start off with today's topic, we want to know the Islamic teachings regarding segregation of gender.
Well, first of all, as you know that the mixed gender environment issue is not an easy topic to be discussed in one session. But we try to cover, some of the ideas that we need to focus on today so that we can give a short idea about, the topic. So back to your question, which is about the evidence, from our religion. I can quote, like 3 main references for as a start, and maybe you can add more. We've got, like in chapter 33 in the Holy Quran, there is like one verse where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks, like the believing people to talk to women after a barrier. They should be, like kind of a barrier. So that's a kind of indication for the segregation, if you want to call it. I don't like to use the word, segregation.
Being there from the very beginning.
Yes, from the beginning. So that means we should not, be together. This is one evidence, stating that we should not, be together in order to avoid a lot of, things that we're going to talk about them. Another evidence that I could mention too is the hadith by the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That, when he was also advising, people not to be with woman alone, unless she has a relative, who's very close to her.
A close relative.
Okay, like mahram. So this is also another evidence, that supports the idea of separation. Also, we've got another hadith that's related to the praying concept. There's better, rows in praying for men are the front rows, while the best ones are for women are the back. That is also another evidence that shows that we need to have this kind of separation between men and women.
And this is also practiced at the moment in our mosques, where there is a total segregation between the main prayer room and the women
there is a
room.
private prayer room for women as well. One of the evidences as well, when the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, warned his companions from entering into houses or into areas where there are strange women. When I say strange, women who are not either your mothers, grandmothers, aunties, sisters, daughters, nieces. So let's say cousins or any other unrelated women. And he warned them from entering into these areas. And someone asked, what about in-laws? Because they were very close with their in-laws. And the Prophet, peace be upon him, said, in-laws are like death.
Exactly.
The reason it's like death is because it is a relationship that you assume trust. And that trust can easily be broken.
Absolutely correct.
And that's why the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, has warned us about mixed gender environments. Now, in today's world, how can we cope, Ahmed, with this? Well, in light of these evidences and the teachings, and why do you think, first of all, that the Quran or the Sunnah or the teachings of Islam collectively warning us about mixing together, what is the big deal?
The thing is, what's happening now with this calls of what we call them equality. There's a kind of misconception about, or how a lot of people misunderstand the concept of equality. Okay, we are equal, but we are also different. I'm talking about men and women. And because of that, now what's happening is that with a lot of calls for this kind of mixing in roles, we tend to force people to shift from their real role to another role. And this is what's happening, with a lot of ladies. Okay, sometimes, because this is as they say, says, this is like a man world. Men control the world. Okay, but we seem to support women. Okay, but in reality we are not. We are forcing them to move from one stage to another stage, or to wear a new type of a cloth.
What do you mean when you say that it's a man's world? Just to make it clear for our listeners.
Yes, I mean that, we control a lot of things that are happening around us. Okay.
Do you say that is correct? Are you supporting the idea of men are actually controlling the world?
I'm not supporting, but I'm saying I'm talking about the reality. The reality states that, we are in control for the world. And we state a lot of roles as men, compared to women. We are trying to trick a lot of ladies by telling them that, you need to do as we do. And a lot of ladies, get into this trick. They get trapped. So they tend to move from this stage of, being a woman, to being another person that, they are not supposed to do or to be. So we need to be very careful about, the idea of who you are. Okay.
I got what you're saying. This is the reality. This is not how it should be. How it should be is that we share this world, and we both are in control. This is how Islam is teaching us. This is how it should be. But the reality is that there are control freaks, and the majority of them are men who really push for this mixed gender environments and impose certain ways of how women should dress, or how women should behave, or how women should lead their lives. And
if you look at it, even for men moving in towards the territories of women, they become feminine. They lose the the pride as a man, and they lose their responsibility as men as well. So you see men entering into fashion designing, into tailoring, into hairdressing, and all of these things are not part of the nature of a man.
But tailor, I would differ with you in tailoring. Tailoring is something that
even the Prophet
Idris was a tailor. When we say hairdressing, the normal barbershop is okay, but the hair straighteners and all of that stuff, I can't stand it myself. But to go back to our question, why did Islam focus on...
Is it a threat?
Why did Islam focus on separating? One thing I can think of is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us in two genders, and that we are attracted towards each other.
Exactly.
And that is something that is intrinsic, built within us.
Natural.
We can't deny it. We're not saying that we are always on a sexual mode. We are not. But how can you confirm that the person you're sitting with is not thinking that way? And if we can confirm that there is a minority who are able of controlling their desires and behavior,
but the majority
or the mass majority, you can't control that.
It's true.
And Islam is a religion of
avoiding,
avoiding, and being more cautious rather than giving
treatment, later on. Prevention is better than cure.
Exactly.
So this is, one important reason why we should, Islam, has forbidden, the idea of mixing, because as you said, it's absolutely correct that there is a natural desire towards, the other or the opposite, gender. And you cannot just say, because, I had one day, a conversation with one of the ladies, and she was saying, it's not my problem if you cannot control yourself. If you come and, talk to me, this is your problem, not my problem. I said, we are contributing to the problem. Because, when you don't do your part and I don't do my part, then we are both contributing to the problem. And we need to work together in order not to have all these consequences that we're going to talk about later on.
Before you continue, Ahmed, a verse came to my mind just now when Almighty Allah orders the believers. He says that do not come close to adultery. In this verse, it's very, very important that he did not say, do not commit adultery. He said, do not come close adultery. It means there are many steps before you fall into stages until you fall into adultery. So try and avoid and be on the safe side from the very beginning.
And the way we behave today and the culture it makes the mixed gender environments even more dangerous than before. The way that we are... so much away from the teachings of the Quran.
There you go.
We are unguarded. We are unprotected. We are more vulnerable to the, let's say, the teachings of Satan or Iblis and following his steps. The way that women dress today is not helping either.
And the way men behave.
The way men behave, women behave, the way that the media portraying women and men and the relationships. Even the simplest of adverts would encourage actually men to get closer to women. Anything and everything now is advertised, so women can get closer to men, or vice versa. You see a Colgate or whatever advert, a man getting into an escalator, and he attracts a woman.
But the most important thing that we should make clear and distinguish is that this is not a problem of the women or the men.
Of course.
It's both.
It's
this is
both.
Why, both parties have to work into this.
And I think what we are missing, in our days is what I should call it maybe the art of fighting temptation, which is one element that, we really have to learn how to do it. And this, can be developed only if you are well educated about, your religious teaching. And we've got another problem nowadays, which is that a lot of people think that religion is a threat or a way of, viewing you as a person, as a reactionary person. So a lot of people think that if you don't, get educated about religion, then you're not becoming, terrorist, or you're not becoming, narrow-minded. So you'll not be that person who is approachable by a lot of people. In fact, religion can teach you a lot. Okay, so you'll become more approachable. You will be able to deal with issues, that you are encountered with every day. So we need to change this idea that religion is a threat. Religion is something that, might stop you from thinking and advancing in life. So we need to also to clear that concept.
Thank you, Ahmed. Now, Ahmed,
yeah, I just
you wanted to add something?
Yeah,
okay.
I just wanted, since we were talking about why, we should not have what they call mixed gender environment, we also need to talk about why people think that we should, mixed gender environment. So, what do you think? We should.
It's modernity, isn't it? It's part of being hip and being modern,
exactly,
and not being backwards.
Some would say that kids or young teenagers, they will grow up and work in the same environment together with other genders. So it's better to get them used to mixed gender environments from an early stage, so that it doesn't become a cultural shock when they go back to work or when they join the university.
A very obscure reason that some people might give is that men or boys need to be in contact with girls or in very close proximity with girls, because otherwise they'd be very shy, and it probably would not help them build their social skills.
There you go. And what or sometimes they call them psychological complexes. You'll not be able to cope, or you become very shy. You cannot deal with people who are around you. So you need to have that kind of contact, as you said, with girls or with ladies. So you become, more.
Otherwise, if you are deprived for a very long time and you're suddenly exposed, then that is dangerous. And that is more dangerous than actually mixing. But I think we need to go to the next question here.
Before that, some would claim and say that boys perform bad in school and college, but if you get them in a classroom with girls, they become embarrassed and they compete with girls, which, and then later on you'll tell us what these studies talk about. Okay, the next point we're going to discuss is the experience around the world, whether it is the Western world or the Eastern world, regarding mixed gender environment. Many places around the world, they are practicing the mixed gender environment. What can you tell us? How is their experience regarding this?
Well, I'll try to mention some studies that were conducted in different parts of the world. And let's start, with a very famous example, which is what happened in the United States in 2002. Okay, George Bush was reading a book called America Prays or Not Pray.
He can read?
Oh, yeah? Okay, and he sort of, get affected by the ideas mentioned in that book. Okay, and which led him to discuss the issue with the Minister of Education in 2002. And the Minister of Education at that time decided to allow some of the schools to have segregation or separation. And not only that, because they studied that they had a lot of issues with the students, in terms of achievements, accomplishments, and so on. So they decided to go for a plan where if a school decides to go for a separation,
single gender classes.
Exactly, they will get more support. Okay, and there was another study conducted by another professor at Harvard University, and they then found out that students or female schools, where they just have only female students, they performed really well in math, literacy, and writing. Okay, and so they just started to believe that they have to do something about it. And this study has been promoted in a lot of schools in New York, Michigan, Baltimore, a lot of states in the United States. And in fact, some of them, adopted the idea. And I was talking to Dr. Weil, a few days back, about this kind of, tendency, by a lot of headmasters to separate, a lot of school, students, from, the boys and the girls. They don't want to have them in the same class as the first step. So they want to have one class for girls, okay, and another class for boys.
Even though the school is mixed?
Yes, as the first step, okay. And then maybe gradually, they want to move to another stage, which is maybe they have one whole shift, for the girls, and then another shift, for the boys, okay, in order to have, less contact with girls and boys. So this is also another, another evidence or another study that shows there is a problem with this kind of education, and this is why a lot of people are putting a lot of money and to conduct the studies to study the consequences of such environment. And then if you allow me also, I can talk about, a study also conducted in one of the schools in the States. They found about, 48% of the girls, okay, have been encountered with sexual abuse. And they are below the age of 16.
Wow.
Before they graduated from high school. And they found about 22% of this, 48%, okay, were below the age of 13.
Amazing.
So maybe there are 10, 11, 12, 13 who were raped, okay, or had the, a chance, to have sexual relationship with, okay, somebody. And not only that, they have kids. Okay.
So that is, you assume that the people who have done that are of the same age group. So it just defies the whole assumption and the argument that children are innocent. And innocence in children means that we can always have this mixed gender environment at that age. Maybe we should worry at probably 18 or above. And this particular study, it just breaks that argument and defies that argument.
But it's a basic instinct in human beings, whether
Of
they're
course.
kids or adults. It
course.
happens. I am very, very much interested, Ahmed, to know if there are any research conducted on single gender schools. Were there any problems? Were there any issues regarding these single gender schools?
There are some issues, but compared to mixed gender schools, okay, the difference is just huge. You cannot believe it, okay? And this is why, I mentioned, the school.
I think we have a call. Let us take a call and
Sure,
then continue
sure.
this.
No
Salam
problem.
alaikum. Salam
Walaikum
alaikum.
salam.
How are you, sister?
Hi, I can hear myself echoing. Hold on.
Okay.
I have a
Melissa.
question about the age at which we should separate children, because I'm not exactly sure when they should start.
Okay, the age which is appropriate to separate. Where do you mean? In the Eastern world or in the Western world, or in general?
Well, how about here for a start in Oman? Where does the justification come from for Quranically in our religious studies, and at exactly what age do we need to separate girls and boys when they're studying together and playing together?
So you mean in schools? You mean in schools, right?
Yeah, in schools, mainly in schools.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, sister?
Not that I can think of at the moment, so I'll leave you be.
All right,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Well, maybe you want to elaborate. What I know is that there is a hadith, by the Prophet Muhammad, where he advises, people to segregate, the kids,
the siblings,
okay, at a certain age, which is al-madaja, as according,
where the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, teach your children to pray at the age of 7.
Yeah.
And you could punish them by hitting them at the age of 10. And at that age, the age of 10, where you need to separate them from where they sleep.
Yeah.
So boys, for example, cannot sleep on the same bed, but they can sleep in the same room.
And this we're talking about brothers and sisters.
Brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
Where boys cannot sleep on the same bed, they need to sleep on separate beds. Girls and boys, genders, must sleep in separate rooms. They can't, just sleeping on separate beds is not enough. They need to be in separate rooms.
So can we say that this is the right age to segregate in schools as well?
This is exactly even before at schools. Why? Because school is a place where you need to teach people and teach them values. And one of the most important values is teaching them shyness or haya. Without this, there are no boundaries for what you can do in terms of behavior. We need haya or shyness, and we need to develop that.
This is not only in women, in girls, also in boys.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So when people say that boys would be shy and they talk about it negatively, that is wrong. If they are developing some type of shyness, which is haya, that is positive.
Yeah, it's about a positive form of shyness. I don't know if we can call it shyness in a way in English.
It's not the literal translation.
I think maybe modesty would be more of a good translation for the word. Like this is back to the idea of the culture here. We we were talking about how people are scared of the religion, okay, and so we don't try to teach our kids a lot of principles that we need to introduce it from the beginning, because of the attack that we're getting from the media. Everybody knows that there's a huge move of attacking religion, and so now people are getting scared of religion, thinking that religion can be an obstacle for a lot of things to be introduced or to be talked about or discussed at home. I was talking to my friend who's American, and I was sort of amazed with the way he talks to his kid. There's a kind of dialogue, and just it's a very, very interesting dialogue that you will feel that you cannot find it among even people who are adults or mature, okay, but that was a kind of a practice from the beginning that the father decided to have with his child. So
okay, dear listeners, please call us on 24602058. That's 24602058. Tell us what you think about the show. We'll take a short break.
The Modern Family.
There's a beautiful story of a student of knowledge. He was extremely hungry at once. So he went out there to search for food. He could not find any food. He asked people did not give him any food, unfortunately. So he went into a farm and he grabbed an apple and he ate an apple, and then he regretted his action. He was saddened about what he has done. So he asked people, who owns this farm? So they've told him there's a person that lives in that specific area. So he went to him. He said, please forgive me. I have eaten an apple from your farm. Please forgive me. He said, I will not forgive you. وَسَأَكُونْ خَصْمَكْ أَمَامَ اللَّهِ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ. And I will be your opposition the day of judgment in front of Allah. He said, it was only an apple. Please forgive me. He said, I will not forgive you. And he walked back inside the house. So this young man waits outside the house. He waits from after Dhuhr until before Asr, and this man comes out. He said, I beg you to forgive me. He said, I'm willing to become a laborer. I am willing to work for you. Just forgive me for that apple. He said, okay, I'll forgive you on one condition. He said, what is it? He said, that you marry my daughter. And he was overwhelmed. He was very happy. He said, but she has few problems. She's deaf, dumb, blind, and disabled. He said, what? He said, I will never forgive you until you marry her. He said, I will never forgive you until you marry her. And they have set a certain date for this young man to come. So he came dragging his legs along because he's saddened. He's upset that he's going to marry someone that he's going to be looking after for the rest of his life. So he walks inside the house. He sees a beautiful girl. And she comes up to him. And he's just astonished. He's amazed. He's surprised. And he's looking at her. She said to him, my father has been looking for a spouse for me for a long time. He's been looking for a husband for me for a long time. And when he saw that you're fearful of Allah because of the apple that you've eaten, he knew that you are the right person for me. And she said to him, yes, I am blind from looking at haram. And I am deaf from hearing haram. And I am dumb from speaking ill haram. And I am disabled to walk to haram. I am disabled to walk to haram. Subhanallah. And guess what? They were married. And guess who their son was? Their son is one of the greatest A'imma rahmatullahi alayh. His name is Abu Hanifa rahmatullahi alayh.
The Modern Family. The Modern Family.
Dear listeners, Assalamu alaikum and welcome back. Please call us on 24602058. This is the Modern Family on 90.4 FM, and we would like to receive your calls and have your input about the topic. It's a very hot topic and it's a very important one. So please give us a call on 24602058. Ahmed, before we go to the next question, I would like to come back to something that you have said, which is mentioned in the researches. You mentioned that there is a lot of pregnancies at a very early age.
Correct.
In some countries. Now, to me, I looked at that as a huge threat. Why? Because we look at the problem and we sort of undermine it. And we look at the issue and say, these are just innocent kids. But this issue turns into a social problem. You have very young parents, or a single parent, first of all.
Yeah.
You have an economic burden to the state because you need to care, and the social system or the social welfare system will have to care and spend a lot of money to take care of these.
Yeah.
There is a security problem because these single parents or children raised by single parents, which could end up in shelter homes.
Correct.
Their psychological behavior might not be up to scratch, and probably in most of the times they might end up being criminals.
Yeah.
So it is turning into an economical burden,
Correct.
a social problem, and a security problem.
Yeah.
I have two other threats that I could think of, Dr. Weil. One is abortion, which is killing human beings. And the second issue is depriving these girls from their childhood.
Yes.
Because when they become mothers at a very early age of their life, then they are deprived from being just kids.
And this is talking about societies which are probably more accepting to these issues.
Yeah.
But our societies are very, very unforgiving to issues like these.
Yes.
And could turn very, very nasty. So we need to really emphasize on the enormity of this issue. And it's not just about children having fun together.
Yeah. And like back to the idea of economy or economical impacts of such, environment, like you need to understand also that, a lot of parents, who are supposed to be parents, in fact, but they're not, So the father of that child, will not be willing to support the kid.
Yeah.
First of all, because he doesn't have a job, because he's still young. And the other thing is that, they don't have the ability, in a way. They are not ready for such a mission. And so we have to be very careful about this. And then, who's going to be victimized? The kid and the mother.
Yeah.
The mother doesn't have, the skills
and her family as well. For
sure, yeah. Because, they will have to have the burden now, taking care of her, and also for, and taking care of her children. So it's not an easy thing. And look at the psychological impact on this girl, who is, as you deprived, from her, childhood, stage. So now she's not ready for this stage. But, because she had to go through this.
And she can't go back to the childhood stage.
No, that's it. It's over. So we need to be careful about this. We need to talk about this, in many occasions.
Okay, let's talk about the next point, which is Oman's experience when it comes to mixed gender environment. And when I say Oman, I mean like schools, colleges, and malls.
Yeah. Well, we have introduced, a long time ago, what we call basic education, which requires also having, boys and girls at the same time. I was talking to a lot of teachers who were involved in this, okay? And I guess, now, the percentage of getting them involved is less compared to when it was introduced at the beginning. But, I remember some of the stories that, teachers used to tell me, okay, about, this kind of mixing, environment. And you'll be surprised to hear these kind of stories. Because sometimes, because of what our children watch through media, okay, all this, romantic stories, not only through TV or, video games, okay? So they just feel that, this kind of environment can facilitate the chance of practicing what they have seen, what they have, learned from video games or from the media. So we are trying to facilitate the process for them to practice something wrong. Okay, and a lot of teachers, used to tell me, we will be surprised, to hear kids, very, very, young kids talking about things that you never expect. Why? Because they just have this kind of motive, which is finding the girl, okay, in front of him, or the girl finding him in front of her. So you find now these girls, putting a lot of, makeup and, wearing, beautiful clothes in order to attract the attention of the males. And the same thing, for male kids, who are trying also to attract the attention of these girls by having this personality of mature people and so on.
I found something very, very interesting when I visited some of the local schools. These are at early stages of learning, and where the school is a mixed gender environment, but still I think the schools don't have the full trust on this system. When you enter a classroom, you would find rows, and there are rows for girls and rows for boys. Although it's a mixed gender environment, they still don't let them to sit next to each other. So it's like a contradiction. We want to have a mixed gender environment for the kids, and at the same time you have different rows, rows for girls and rows for boys.
But this is not always the case, because sometimes, you will have to have what they call group work. And when you have a group work, sometimes, you don't have a choice. And sometimes, they tend to have, for example, role plays where there's a man and a woman. So a boy will be a man and a woman will be a girl. I mean, a girl will be a woman. So they require that kind of, interaction. Okay. And then even if you are inside the classroom, you try to control the process. Okay. Keeping an eye on everybody inside the classroom. What about, after leaving the classroom? Do you have the capacity to do that?
I came across two kids, a girl and a boy, and I overheard them speaking, and they were saying, can we play dad and mom?
You see?
And I was shocked and said, what do you mean by dad and mom?
You see?
Yeah, so...
And this is back to the idea of underestimating their abilities. We need to change the way we look at these kids. I'm telling you, they are very smart. And we need to talk to them sometimes, as mature people. The more we emphasize, how much intelligence that they have, okay, and then direct that kind of intelligence towards something positive, then, we're going to have, very good generation. But we don't do that. We just feel, no, they don't know anything. They're still babies. They don't know anything about this. But in reality, they know, because we don't keep an eye on their behaviors, what kind of sources did they get, information from. Because now with video games, with media, with interaction, now, everybody has a phone. I mean, what they call them, stupid phones. Everybody has a phone, okay? And he can, or she can get access to any piece of information. Okay, whether it's bad
any image.
Or any image, okay? Whether it's bad or good. Yeah.
Okay, Ahmed, we mentioned young children at schools, but we see a lot of practices around us in colleges where teenagers are getting much more mature. In the parks, public areas and malls, there are practices and phenomena that we see we wouldn't accept. Could you highlight on this issue and what is actually happening in the corridors of educational institutions?
Yeah. Like, if I want to talk about my experience as an educator, in schools and colleges, okay, like, once I had this conversation with one of my male students, and I couldn't believe it, like, he was saying, girls are really weak here, like, Omani girls are really weak. And I was saying, why do you think so? And he was saying, I can get whatever I want from them. Okay?
That is dangerous, huh?
Yes, it's very dangerous, okay?
And I think this is a message that we need to echo into to all girls out there, is that if you think that someone is with you because they think you're cute, no, it's because they think you're cheap.
Yes,
huh?
Correct.
Predators.
Yeah.
Of course,
yeah.
Of course.
So, like, they have this idea that, a lot of girls are weak, and we can get them, whenever you want, whenever they want. And not only that, okay, some of them, they start comparing. For example, what I thought is that, maybe to have a girl from a Western culture, maybe, it would have been much easier for me to get her. But they discover that, getting an Omani girl is much easier than, like a girl from outside. And this is back to the idea of how we bring up our children. Because we really underestimate, their abilities, and we don't expose them to the danger of such environments.
And we don't address the issues. The problem is that we don't address these issues to our children.
Yes.
We take it for granted that they would be fine. And there you go. You have a man who has been raised in Oman, in presumably a conservative society, and talking about having girlfriends.
Yeah. I mean, like, I cannot recall, like, any kind of, these terms, used when I was in my teenage, stage, okay? But now, it's becoming, like a trend. She's they will introduce each other as a girlfriend and a boyfriend as a first stage, and then you don't know what's going to happen after that.
Well, I was in school, because I was in a mixed gender environment, to be honest, and I was in a private school, but I have never seen anyone talk about it openly. But what you're saying, that we have evolved since then, and we have moved forward, between brackets forward.
Negatively, of course.
Negatively, of course.
No, but I would like to emphasize on the values that we teach our children at home, because they're very, very important. If the values are very, very strong, okay, the basics are strong, no matter what environment you go to, you'll have those values with you. For example, if you don't accept something like this to happen to your sister, or your mother, or your aunt, you wouldn't accept it to other women, because they're all sisters to you. So if this value is not there from the beginning, then you'll find every single girl a cheap girl.
Yeah.
And you would assume you would want to do anything that you want.
Yeah.
It might be there in terms of knowing them.
Yeah.
And talking about them in front of your children.
Yeah.
But where is the practice?
Yeah.
What does Islam teach us? Are we following them step by step?
Okay, so anything else you want to add, Ahmed?
I just want to talk about, like one issue, like Dr. Weil was talking about, the idea of trust. Like the thing is, the kind of information sometimes we give to our children are just for the sake of knowledge. We don't have, scientific, or a critical thinking, dialogue with our kids. For example, when I want to teach, my kids why I'm having this, okay, why I should not do this, okay, I need to tell them why. I need
give
to
them the facts.
Exactly. And so that, they will realize, the consequences of such a behavior. Because if you don't tell them, they will be very curious to know why I should not do it. Okay?
Yeah.
And then after that, they will go and seek that kind of, interpretation from somewhere else. Either by practicing it without knowing it, or, asking somebody to help them with that.
Dear listeners, you can always join us in the discussion, in this hot discussion on 24602058. We're looking forward to hear your views on this topic.
Ahmed, you mentioned a really strange story there. shall we be alarmed, Ahmed? Shall parents, as a parent, shall I be alarmed? From what we have seen, of course we see things in the public.
Yeah.
But you have seen things that in educational, higher education institutions. Shall we be alarmed?
Definitely. I mean, we should come back to the idea of modesty. First of all, knowledge cannot be, accommodated, so if we are, more accommodating for new pieces of knowledge or information, then we're going to learn from people. So what we should do, and this is, one program that, one of the ways, that we should emphasize and use in order to educate people. We need to alarm, we need to caution, we need to warn people about the consequences of such, a phenomenon. So I think, your point is very valid.
I think we have a caller. Salam alaikum. Salam alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
How are you, sister?
Good.
Yes, tell us, sister.
I actually want to take part in this discussion because it's very important
Yes, go ahead,
for
sister.
parents first to be involved in this sort of thing with kids.
Yes.
Like I heard the discussions yesterday and day before. If parents are not educated,
Yeah. Can you turn down your radio,
and
please?
you say that women should not have much education but to be housewives,
Is that the
it is
question?
wrong, because I think women should have this education so that they can educate their kids.
I think, sister, in yesterday's show, we emphasized that education
And to
for
guide
mothers,
their kids.
the education for mothers is very, very important, so that they can raise their kids with awareness. But regarding today's issue, what do you think, sister?
That's right.
What's the question, sister?
I
We didn't get the
think
question.
a woman and a man should educate their kids when they come to the age of puberty.
And before that?
It is very important for them, even before that, because you know why? You have to be a friend to your kids.
Yeah.
And if you don't be a friend to your kids, you cannot educate them. And the best way to be a friend to your kids
Thank you. Thank you, sister.
when, say, for example, you come home and you see your child watching TV.
Okay,
Child,
sister, because we're running out
what
of
do you
time, we
do?
only have...
You don't like the program.
Okay, sister, we have only 10 minutes left for the show. Thank you very
So you
much for
put
your
the TV
contribution.
off.
Thank you, sister. Thank you. Yes, Ahmed.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about, the role of knowledge, okay, and Dr. Wilder was talking about, the importance of being, warned. We need to have more ways of communicating these ideas to people and become, more open to the idea of being taught, so that we can learn from, the experts. And I would like to thank you guys, for having, such a program to discuss, all these issues related to family problems.
There is a question here, Ahmed. Now that we have realized that this is an idea that some boys might have about girls, and we have actually a comment here from our colleague Lakshmi. She says it could be that girls are being vulnerable, so they need emotional strength. They might not be cheap. We're not saying that they are. What we are saying is that this is how boys are perceiving them.
Correct.
Of being. So they need to have that emotional strength, and they have to guard themselves. We have another call.
Assalamu alaikum.
Hello, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
How are you, sir?
Fine, thank you. How are you?
Alhamdulillah. It is a really sensitive topic.
Yes, it is.
And I only can pray for you people to Allah bless you and give you the courage to correct this.
Ameen.
Ameen. All of us as a community.
Mixing, because it is not allowed. As per Islam, I know. Tell, not allowed. Stop it, please.
What are you talking
Thank
about?
Thank you very much. Tell no. Say no. No. There is no in between the way. Say no. Finish. It's okay.
Jazakallah khair.
Thank you. May Allah give you the courage. May Allah give you people the courage, please.
Shukran.
This
Thank
will be
you.
my humble pray for you people.
Shukran. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well,
Lovely call.
do you want to comment on that? I mean,
No, I think we're running out of time. We only have a few minutes to go, and we still have a lot of important points, especially when it comes to parenting.
Yes.
There is a misunderstanding or a confusion between parents. Should they be protective, or should they only guide their children?
Yeah. Is it protection, pure protection versus guidance, or is it a bit of both? What do you think, Ahmed?
I think we need both, okay, because there are certain situations where you just need to guide people. Okay, if they have, like these skills or the potentials, just to get, the guidelines, from the parents, then it's okay. But sometimes, you need to interfere and you need to become, more protective, for them so that they don't get into trouble. So, but I would suggest that, first of all, we need to start with guidance.
I think we have. We'll take the last call. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam. How are you doing?
Fine, thank you. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, Ramadan Kareem. This is Anwar, actually.
Yes, Anwar.
And I would like, first of all, to thank you for this nice, program. And I want to also thank Ahmed Al-Mata'ani for his great ideas. And actually, very directly, you have very short time, so I want to ask you about our contribution actually to the society. Do we do something? Are we planning to do something to change something to just get rid of the problems that you have already mentioned?
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
Very good question. Thank you, brother.
Thank you very much.
Contribution to the society.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
So there you go, Ahmed. There are two callers talking almost about the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
There are people who want to phase the whole thing out.
Mm-hmm.
They realize the issues. Ideally, that would be the best solution, is to revert back to the teachings of Islam. There is no gray areas. They are either black or white.
Correct.
It is a very sensitive issue.
Mm-hmm.
It is a crucial issue. So what we want, and we would urge the society and the parents and people in charge to actively work towards reverting back to the teachings of Islam. Until then, Ahmed, we will have to live in the current situation. So we'll have to adapt and deal with it. What are your advice? And this is probably what we are going to end the program with, the practical advice or tips for parents on how to deal with the issue.
Yeah, I think, one of the sisters was talking about, the idea of not having, parents who might not be educated, but now, there are so many ways to get knowledge. I mean, it's not like before where you have to, walk for miles, to get, one piece of information.
Knowledge is at your fingertips.
Exactly. So, we've got all these stupid phones and, all this technology, tools that we have in order to learn, about, One thing I would highly recommend, which is becoming, very popular now, is what we call them, marriage license. Okay, where before you get into marriage, you need to go through some kind of a training. And one of the things that we need to focus, especially for those trainers who are conducting these programs, is the idea of dealing with the children to become, really well aware of what kind of challenges they might, face after school and after
marriage.
they join.
And this is exactly what we're going to talk about tomorrow. So tomorrow we're going to have Dr. Amira again with us, and we'll be talking about marriage awareness.
Yeah. So I think, one of the things, if we can talk to, I'm giving, sort of, an invitation for the experts in this field to conduct more programs, or more workshops to teach, a lot of parents who are interested in having or bringing up, good generation.
We had an argument in previous session saying that we don't need to be trained to be parents, because we can only inherit how we have been raised by our parents, and then we can just carry on. But what we found out that time has changed.
Absolutely.
And things have changed, and
issues
the environment issues are different, and we need to get to be educated, so that we can raise our kids in the safe environment.
And I want, people also to get, like educated about, religion, because there are a lot of solutions and a lot of ideas, discussed in our teaching.
Yeah.
We don't have to have this fear, okay, that, religion can stop us, or religion is an obstacle, for our problems.
Restricts us.
Yes, okay. This is completely wrong. Okay, we need to get rid of that fear. Another thing that, we need to focus on is the idea of dialogue. We were talking about this. We need to have a lot of dialogues with our kids so that they can share a lot of ideas with us.
Not orders.
Not orders.
Yeah.
Okay, and we need to emphasize the fact of, how to answer the questions why, not only what. So we need to also why and how. These are very important questions in developing, what we call critical thinking.
And what we also need to do is we need to practice what we preach.
Yes.
We can't preach to our children and then they come to us and say, why you're not doing it? So I think at home, when we are in gatherings, family gatherings, where we're going to invite our cousins or our relatives, let us start having our meals separately. So men would have their meal separately and female would have their meal separately. This is a type of training our children to the right way of living.
Correct. Yeah.
Mr. Ahmed bin Mubarak Al-Mata'ani, thank you very much for joining us today. We all have benefited from today's session, and I think our listeners have enjoyed today's session. It was a hot one. I was sweating, but alhamdulillah, we're still alive, and see you tomorrow, inshallah, in a new episode tomorrow. I'll leave you with a quote of today.
So the thought of today is a verse from the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, if the whole of mankind and jinns were to gather together to produce the like of this Quran, they could not produce the like thereof, even if they backed up each other with help and support.
Dear listeners, I'm your host Hatim Al-Absalam.
Wa'il Al-Harrasi.
Thank you very much. See you tomorrow.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
The Modern Family. Let us bridge the gap between generations. Let us shape up the modern family. The Modern Family. The Modern Family. Join the discussion and give us your feedback. Live with Hatim Al-Abdussalam and Dr. Wa'il Al-Harrasi. The Modern Family.
It's not a dream, this is so true.